Hello and welcome to HMC History. So today I am going to be talking you through how to answer the similarities question for AQA Power in the People Paper 2 for your GCSE History. So let's get started. So before we get started in structuring our answer, I want to show you this table first. So in history, particularly in the Power in the People unit, because as you guys know, it is between from around 1066 right up until present day. So it covers a lot of different time periods and it also covers a lot of different events. So the way that we find it easiest to break this down is by using this table here, and we look at why things change in history. There are lots of reasons as to why events can happen, or look at the outcomes of different events, the result, the impact of different events. And in our lessons, the easiest way to remember this is by looking at this table. So something could be caused by economic factors, for example, a king raising taxes. Another example could be Parliament or government, the way that they are ruling over a country. Another example might be religion, the fact that religion, particularly in the medieval period, caused a lot of protest, and obviously that's what this whole unit is about, power, people and protest throughout history. So it's just worth looking at this, and those of you who are in my class, you guys will, and who are in all of our classes in year 10 at CAM, we will be using this table, and we have used this table at the end of every single lesson to fill it out, so that when it comes to structuring the essay question, which I will also do an example video on, when it comes to structuring the essay question, you can use this to identify similarities as well as events that have the same causes or outcomes. So now we're going to look at how to answer the question. Okay, so I've got here, explain the similarities. You will be asked in the exam, explain two similarities between two different events. And this is worth 8 marks. And you can see here, I've given you a bit of a structure on how to answer that. So you're going to go for 2 PEE paragraphs, and you're going to identify, it says in the question, 2 ways in which they were similar. The reason I showed you the table in the last slide is to show you how you can identify ways in which they were similar. I'm also going to show you another table that you can help when it comes to, that you can use, that will help you when it comes to revision to identify similarities between events as well. So the question that we are going to be answering today is explain 2 similarities between the Magna Carta and Simon de Montfort. Now before we actually get started, I just want to reiterate to you that you will actually not get this question in the exam. AQA have said very, very clearly that you will be given 2 different events from 2 different time periods. So the different time periods that we study in Power in the People, you've got medieval, you have got early modern, 19th century and 20th century. And I am aware that both of these examples are from from medieval, sorry. However, I think it's important to get used to looking at these exam style questions, and we're using it in this week's lesson. So I just want to remind you that you will not get this question in the exam. However, it's just good to get used to seeing the exam question structures and putting together your tables and how you would structure it if you were writing an answer to it. So I've put that below as well. And then the first thing that you do when you see an exam style question is you bug the question. And I've put a little ladybird there to help you remember. So what you do is you bug it. So box the command word, which is explain. I underline the key history. So I've underlined there Magna Carta and Simon de Montfort. And then you go back and reread the question just to make sure that you know what you're doing. Okay. Now, with our year 11s, with people that have gone through history in the past, we've actually seen them in their mocks and their final exams using this structure. So it's quite good to get into the habit of that now in year 9 and 10 so that you know exactly how to answer the questions. So straight away, we know that the question is asking us to identify 2 ways in which 2 events were similar. And these 2 events, as I've already mentioned, are the Magna Carta and Simon de Montfort. So you're going to answer this by doing 2 PEEs, so 2 paragraphs, and if it helps when it comes to revision, use this table to help you, okay? And the way we remember this is CAMO, so causes, aims, methods, and outcome. And you can also use, if you've got it in front of you or if you've got it on the Google Classroom, you can also use that table that I put up earlier on, okay? So reasons for change, so things like economy, social changes, development of Parliament, challenging royal authority. So I've actually done the first part for you here. All right, so I've done causes, I've identified causes as a similarity between the two events, and I have identified that the king was becoming too powerful, and I've linked that to taxes. And this is just, you don't need to give a massive amount of detail in this table. This is just to get your brain thinking. If you're still using stuff in the Google Classroom, if you're still using your worksheets in front of you and your booklets, that is absolutely fine. This is just to identify ways in which the events are similar. You can also look at the aims, so think about, particularly in both of these events, it was barons that took part in the protests. What did the barons want to achieve? When it comes to methods, how did they make the king, both of the kings, so John and Henry, in both of these events, how did they make the king sit up and notice that things had to change? And then what was the overall outcome? Okay, so what actually happened because of these two protests? So now I'm going to go on, I'm going to show you an example of my first paragraph, or one paragraph that you guys can use to model your answer on, and hopefully this will help you with structuring your answers. So as I mentioned earlier on, you won't get this question in the exam, but to do revision tasks like this, it just helps with your understanding of the events, and this can actually also feed into your structuring of the 16 mark essay. So it is definitely worthwhile practicing these types of questions, even though you won't get asked it in the exam. So I've put there, bug the question, so we did that on the previous slide, so don't worry about that. Box the command word, underline the key history, and go back and read the question. Now we are ready to answer the question. For this, as I said earlier on, you're giving 2 PEEs. And I'm going to read it out to you, and I've also got it on my lap, so that's why I'm going to look down. So, one way in which the Magna Carta and Simon de Montfort were similar was the causes of both events. Both were caused by poor leadership from both kings and the king becoming too powerful. So that's kind of like my point there, okay? I've just introduced what I'm saying, and I've said one way in which they are similar. For example, give an example. The Magna Carta was signed by King John as he had been a poor ruler. I'm now going to explain that in a bit more detail. He had lost land in France and raised taxes highly for his barons to pay for wars in France. Again, I've given a little bit more detail. He introduced scutage for his barons, which was a medieval tax, and he used this 11 times and raised the tax each time, which angered the barons. So there is my first point about Simon de Montfort, okay? About the Magna Carta. I've given a full explanation about why the king became too powerful, right? Now I'm going to go on to my point about Simon de Montfort. Simon de Montfort's actions were similar, as they were also caused by King Henry becoming too powerful. I've introduced it, or that's my point. Henry had tensions with the barons as he had raised taxes as he was paying money to the Pope to fight wars in Europe. This could be viewed as a repeat of what happened in the lead up to the signing of the Magna Carta. Now, I've not given as much detail as I possibly could have done there. You could also kind of mention that he was breaking the terms of the Magna Carta that were signed by his father. You could definitely mention that as well. So there is 1 PEE for this answer, okay? What you guys should now do is go back, look at your information, look at anything that you've got in front of you, use that table from the previous slide, the camel, the causes, aims, methods, and outcomes, and try and identify one more way in which these events were similar, and then structure another paragraph, all right? And then you'll have an example of 8 marks worth of answers. Those of you who I have set this as work for this week, of course, you can use this as an example. Push yourself and try and answer 2 more points or give 2 more PEE paragraphs. You can send over to any of your teachers and we will have a look over them and mark them for you, okay? I hope this helps. If you've got any questions, please email any of us, and I'll see you in the next video.